Welcome to CPXL. This podcast of CrossPoint Church is designed to encourage you to go further and grow deeper. CrossPoint is a rural multi-site church committed to taking the gospel to every place and everyone. You can access all CrossPoint resources at crosspointchurch.com. But now, let's join this episode of CPXL with your host, Pastor Andy Addis.
And the wonderful Mrs. Addis. Welcome once again to CPXL.
Hello.
How are we? We are in the month of March. In like a lion, out like a lamb. In like a lamb, out like a lion. That's what they always say about March. I don't know where you're at. Here's the problem. Maybe you're in a windy place. Maybe you're not. That's bad weather. That's like Farmer's Almanac weather is what that is right there. You act like you don't know what I'm talking about. You never heard that?
Yes, I have.
No, the hedgehog said 6 more weeks, so I'm going with that. February. See, February they do the hedgehog.
I don't think it's a hedgehog.
It's not a hedgehog?
I think it's a groundhog.
Oh, groundhog. That's what it is. No, I use a hedgehog. They're far more accurate. If the hedgehog comes out of the plastic tube, and there's 6 more weeks of winter.
Oh my goodness.
But I only use sonic hedgehogs because you hear them better.
Because that sounds better. Yes. That's
wow.
weird.
All right.
Okay.
We are studying the book of Proverbs
Yes.
and having a lot of fun doing it. We are on chapter 27. We are almost there. High five.
So close.
High five. Chapter 27. I can't wait till we get to chapter 31, all about you.
Oh,
It's the Proverbs 31 woman.
hate that. I hate that. Love it. Hate it.
We'll have you lead
All
that
of
one.
it. Oh.
That'll be fun. Oh, that's an idea.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, we just all of you who are out there, and you'll have time to let us know if you think Kathy should lead, and I just be color commentary for the Proverbs 31 study.
Oh, my word.
I think that's the way that should go. Okay, we're in chapter 27. If you have not been keeping up, will you read a chapter? We comment on a couple verses and just join you in the study. And it's been a great journey so far. But we're wrapping up on Proverbs, and we'll figure out a new plan when we're done with this. But got to be honest with you. The verses that we're going to look at were not my first choice. And what's funny is right before we started recording this, we had a little episode because you said what?
Oh, well, I don't ever know what verses we're going to go over.
Because you don't want to know.
Because I don't want to know.
You want to be responsive.
Right. I don't want to try to manipulate my response. And that's why sometimes I look like a doofus. But so before we started, I said, okay, what verses are we doing? And he didn't answer. And I said, it better not be verse 15.
And what's funny is she got to see my notes because I do prepare before we do these.
Yeah.
And it's not, but I did write verse 15 through 17 down just to reference as wisdom from the book of Proverbs that we're not going to cover. Let me read verses 15 through. Actually, would you read verses 15 to 17 for us? I would appreciate that.
Would you?
Yes.
I'm sure you will. Okay. A quarrelsome wife is as annoying as constant dripping on a rainy day.
Keep going. Get 2 more verses.
Stopping her complaints is like trying to stop the wind or trying to hold something with greased hands.
But then, the great verse of wisdom, verse 17.
As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend.
See, that would have been a valuable study, but because you don't want us to do that, we'll focus on that.
No, let's do it.
No, I'm good.
Let's do it.
I love There's just a number of proverbs that are about difficulty in the home, and what is the one? Better to eat a crumb in a corner than in a house of feasting. That with a
grumbling wife.
Yeah, it's so funny. Sorry.
Something about being in an attic or something away from.
Well, we shouldn't quote things we don't have.
Yeah,
right in
that's
front of
true.
us.
We shouldn't.
But this is one of my favorites. The continual dripping on a rainy day and a quarrelsome wife are alike. I wouldn't know. So that's the issue. That's why it's funny. I don't have any frame of reference. Okay.
Just don't.
What we're going to focus on is Proverbs 27 verses 5 through 7. I think this, again, remember, we're looking for passages. There's so much similarity throughout the book of Proverbs. I'm looking for things that are unique to those chapters so that we get new teachings each time. And 5 through 7, I think, is just absolutely powerful. I'm going to read it first, and then I'll
Okay.
have you read it as well, so we get a couple versions. But let me do ESV. Here's what it says, Proverbs 27, 5-7. And by the way, I simply call this particular podcast, Ouch. Ouch. Here we go.
Okay.
Better is an open rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of an enemy. One who is full loathes honey, but to one who is hungry, everything bitter is sweet.
Okay. It just seems
What?
it's kind of like Yoda wrote ESV. It's hard to keep.
Like Yoda wrote the ESV version?
Like,
I can see that.
I see what you're saying, but there's such an easier way to say it.
Okay, that's such a good... But before you read... No, go ahead and read the NLT, and then let's have a conversation about translation before
Okay.
we get into this. Because that's,
Okay.
that's a good thought.
Verse 5. An open rebuke is better than hidden love. Wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. A person who is full refuses honey, but even bitter food tastes sweet to the hungry.
And you're right, they said the same thing, but ESV is a little harder to understand. The New Living Translation is easier to comprehend. The reason we have different translations is because of translation needs. Now, every generation should retranslate Scripture. And the reason is that language changes. And so we don't want to lose that. So, for
Right.
instance, words in the 16th century, when the King James Version was written, some words don't even mean the same thing.
Right.
Like the word
right.
pale meant black, like P-A-L-E, like we would say that if that was a color, it would mean white to us. To them, it meant black. So words change. I told my grandpa once that I used his graduation money to buy a CD, and he was so proud of me because he thought I got a certificate of deposit, and he did not know I meant Phil Collins.
Compact disc.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so there is a need to change. But the translations, they have different purposes as well. The New Living Translation is what they call a thought-for-thought translation. It is written at about an 8th grade level, which is where newspapers and magazines are written for, so that its primary focus is to be understandable. Right? That's what it
Gotcha.
wants. It wants the everyday reader to get a hold of that and go, I got that. So what it does is it takes complete thoughts and says, now I want to make sure we get the meaning of that thought. The ESV is written at about a 15th grade level, so the last time I checked anyway. So a collegiate level, and it is a word for word, not a thought for thought, as a word for word,
Okay.
which means that they're translating every word of the text and trying to make them connect together, but sometimes it does sound a little like Yoda because their primary focus is not readability, it is accuracy.
Gotcha.
So one is for a daily devotional, just kind of read through Scripture. What does it say to me? The other is for a study and an academic approach.
Okay.
And neither one's right or wrong. They just are different purposes. If you'd like an exhaustive look at this, there is a chapter in my book, Reading It Right, on the different kinds of translations and the different the different uses of them for you to make some choices. Now, I would say in this digital age, have your favorite print Bible, go to it, write it up, but then on your phone, have 3 or 4 other go-tos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So
Absolutely.
that you can, that's why we're using both versions here. We're not a one-version podcast.
Right.
We're trying to learn.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now that we said all that, we forgot the text. Better is an open rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of an enemy. One who is full loathes honey, but to the one who is hungry, everything bitter is sweet. So, verse 5, an open rebuke is basically a public calling out, right? That's where they didn't come to you privately, but they said, hey, get your house in order, or something. It's an open rebuke. And they say that is better than someone who privately just really loves you. Behind the scenes, quietly, really What? So the first part of this, as we break down the passage, is that an open rebuke can actually be a display of love. If a person's love is genuine, they will not fear to tell a friend about fault or correct them. It's not necessarily that it needs to be public, like in front of everybody.
Right. Right.
But the give and take here is this: like, I love him so much, I just can't tell him that he's making this mistake. Imagine if your doctor loved you so much that he just couldn't bear to tell you had cancer. I mean, it's treatable, but man, it's going to be so hard. You're going to be so scared. It's going to be very difficult. You're probably going to be mad. You're going to have a horrible day. I just can't. I love him so much. I can't do that. Is that loving? Or what would be more loving?
Just tell him.
Tell him.
Just tell me.
You got to tell him.
Yeah.
And this is the proverb. It's a display of love, an open rebuke if somebody desperately needs it, and it's coming out of love.
Yeah.
Now, you get people who think that their spiritual gift is criticism. And they think, well, I'm a truth teller. I'm a prophet. I'm going to tell you that. This is not you. This is not what we're talking about. This is about somebody, and you love them, and you care about them, and you don't want them to hurt. Because of that, you have to say the hard things.
Yeah.
Parenting requires open rebukes.
I did it again.
You did that with your chin.
Yeah. Wow. Sorry. That whole parenting is hard because you have to say the hard things. You have to do that. You have to because you love them. You can't let them go on acting like.
It's not loving to let them grow up and to be serial killers.
Right.
It's not. It's not. I love it. He's only 7 months old, our grandson, and my job is not to tell him no. That's his parents' job. But we were at lunch today, and we heard that Mom, they asked me, because he loves taking your glasses.
He loves taking your glasses.
He just rips them.
Immediately.
As soon as you get him, he just grips them off, and he puts them in his mouth. And,
yes.
And I'm like, hey, whatever, man. Makes you happy. I'm good with that. And his father, my son, had a conversation with me. He goes, because I was holding his boy while he was chewing my glasses, and he goes, hey, we're actually trying to get him to stop doing that because he takes Joy's glasses off her face all the time. So if you could help us out, I need you to not let him do it. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I didn't want to be the one to do it, but I'm like, yeah, it was an open rebuke, he told me. But even more so, to hear the story of Joy telling him no and him understanding that he was wrong for like 7 months old. He's like, oh.
Yeah.
But you got to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's called parenting. That's called good communication.
And loving them.
It is a loving thing.
Yeah.
So you're probably already thinking about somebody that needs to be told something, that needs to be challenged or that needs to be corrected or that just needs to be held accountable. And the last thing you want to do is hear the rest of this podcast. But this is the beginning of it. Better is an open rebuke than hidden love. When you love somebody, you're compelled to display love in that way. The word hidden is actually a Hebrew word that means closed up or withdrawn. And we know that a withdrawn love, I need you to think about that. A withdrawn love means I do love you, but I have to pull it back because I can't say this. I'm actually pulling back. I'm withdrawing my love because this is too hard for you to hear, too hard for me to say. I don't want the fallout from this.
Wow.
And that puts a whole new light on it for me.
Yeah. My study note says that it's unexpressed love has no value.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
All
right, so the beginning of this, better is an open rebuke than hidden love. Then the second part, faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. And again, this sounds like, isn't it saying the same thing? It is, except it's also reversing it just a little bit. What do I mean reversing it? An enemy, this is not the one who loves you. This is literally one who hates, is what, if you translated that straight across, enemy is not just frenemy or they don't like me. This is one who hates. So you could put that right in there. Faithful are the wounds of friends, but profuse are the kisses of the one who hates you. Now, wait, they're kissing me? Yes, that's the point. That faithful are the wounds of a friend. That was an old Wayne Watson song. For those of you older Christians who know super cool music from back in the 80s and 90s. The friend of a wounded heart, right? Faithful are the wounds of a friend. If a friend, and I've heard this 1,000, I heard it just yesterday with a group of guys. I didn't like it at the time, but they told me this, and it changed everything. It helped me. It pulled me out of this. It kept me from doing that. And down the road, there's a scar that they have from that conversation or that moment, but they hold it. They rub that scar and they go, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God they did that. If they didn't do that, I would be here right now. Right? That's the faithful wounds of a friend. But the reverse of it is this. But profuse are the kisses of an enemy. They are over the top. They are
flattering,
numerous. Yes, it's all those things. And that's why, as a preacher, I don't try and get all that excited when people tell me how good the sermon was. You know what I mean? Don't need to hear profuse kisses about stuff. My favorite is when somebody comes up and goes, "That sucked."
Is that really your favorite?
Well, everybody likes a pat on the back from time to time.
Sure.
But when they come up to you and they're like, "Man, that hurt," or "That is just up in my grill." Thank you, Lord. That's good. Because that wounded me. And by the way, the word wounded is a non-physical wound.
It's good to point that out.
It's a non-physical wound in the Hebrew. But beware somebody who always just
always has just sweet things to say.
Yeah. Because if somebody truly loves you and they know you, let's be honest, are you always worthy of the kisses? Are you always
I'm not. I'm not. No. That's for sure.
So faithful are the wounds of a friend. I remember I think it was 2009. Yeah, when I broke the bones in this hand. And was playing basketball, got smashed pretty good, thought it was jammed. A friend of mine tried to pull him out. It was the most stupid thing ever because,
it was not jammed.
Blah, 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 blah.
It was very, very broken.
But I didn't know it was broken. We suspected it might be broken, but thought maybe it'll get better. So I waited 2 or 3 days. Then I went in, and I remember I was hurting so bad. And the ER doctor said, "How long has this been like this?" I said, "Well, it happened Saturday." He said some expletive. He goes, "Dang, I can't believe you made it that long." He said, "That looks really painful." I said, "Well, it's been really bad." I go, "What do we got to do?" He goes, "Well, it's going to get worse now." I said, "You waited too long, and it's healed over, and we're going to have to re-break it." Oh, no.
That was a terrible, terrible long day.
It was a green stick fracture is what he called it. And it had fractured or broken and either healed over or had not broken all the way through. But to properly heal it, they had to break it the rest of the way.
Ugh.
Oh, it was just miserable.
That was gross.
Miserable. But if they hadn't done that, I wouldn't have the use of that hand. And I would be in continual pain because it never would have healed right. But because we did that hard thing, because a friend wounded in the right way, the healing was able to come.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. And a friend will do that. Whereas an enemy, "No, you're fine. You're good. No, let's keep the peace.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine."
Yeah.
Right?
When you said that you want to hear somebody tell you that it sucked or whatever, I remember.
I don't mean that the message sucked. I mean that they thought it sucked.
Right.
That.
Right. I remember you asked me one time. I can't remember what the sermon was now, but you asked me, "What'd you think?" Which is our normal behavior on Saturday night.
I need my eval from my number one critic.
I said, "I hated it, and I think I'm going to go to a different church."
And see, that was awesome.
I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I've just had my spiritual butt whipped for the last 40 minutes. I'm all done. It was awful.
I don't want to talk to you.
I want to go home.
You're sleeping on the couch.
And I'm switching churches.
That was a faithful friend wound right there. That was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was. Yeah.
And the sermon was too. All right, last verse.
You're full of it.
I am. There is some question as to whether this verse directly connects to the ones above it or below it. It might just be a standalone, but I see it connecting to a certain degree, so we're going to cover it as well. One who is full loathes honey, but to the one who is hungry, everything bitter is sweet. The issue on both halves of this couplet, now don't forget in Hebrew poetry, which all of Proverbs is Hebrew poetry, a couplet either says the same thing on both halves, but it can be two positive, two negatives, a negative, a positive, positive, a negative, but they're saying the same thing. On both halves of this, it's about hunger, right? If you're not hungry, I can't even eat honey, which is what you would normally, you got to think at the biblical era, that is the good stuff, right? That's honey.
Right.
That's the sweet
That's the
treat.
chocolate.
Yeah, that's it. But to the one who is hungry, everything bitter, like leeks and onions. Man, they're sweet if you're hungry. So the real issue in verse 7 is about your hunger. Let me just read for you. This is what the Bible Knowledge Commentary says about this verse. This verse may be teaching that one's attitude toward material possessions is influenced by how much we possess. Those who have much do not appreciate the value a gift as much as those who have little. I agree with all of that, except I don't think it's limited to stuff. I think the concept is if you're full of compliments, you don't need any compliments. But if you're starved for attention, even
a backhanded compliment.
You'll take it. And so the key issue here is hunger. And I guess what I want to, as we're just talking about the main thing here, when I say ouch, if you're living in such a way that you're so full that even good sweet stuff, you don't need it. Is anybody talking to you? Is anybody loving you and saying the hard things? Or if all you get, you're starving, and you'll even take negative attention. You ever seen those kids in school? Even negative attention is attention to them.
Attention, yeah.
And are you around? I mean, are the people that you're around, are they giving you any kind of love? Is there any kind of support? The reason that I wanted to finish with that verse is it's not just about what you're doing and saying, but it's about what you're receiving. And are you stuffed so full that you're like, oh, I could care less. I don't need anybody else. I got I'm full. Or, boy, I'm just barely eking along. I'll take anything I can get. And I think it's about compliments. I think it's about love. I think it's about affection. I think it's about significance. I think it's not just stuff. I think it's about anything. We can get full or we can starve in those things. And I think that's a difficult place to be, but it's wonderful to know because it tells you how you're going to respond to people. If you're starved, then you'll hang around anybody who will say what you want them to say.
Yeah.
But if you're full, you may not appreciate the people who are around you because you've already got what you need. And so I think it's a wake-up call for us. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. My commentary has just a very little comment on it. Even the best teaching, which is the honey, will be refused if offered at the wrong time. The key to real learning is the receptivity of the student.
Yeah. At the beginning when I said the key issue is the hunger. Is the student hungry or is the student not hungry? It's all going to be offered, but what are you going to do with that?
Yeah. Interesting.
So that's just kind of a way to take a look at who you are and where you are, and maybe it'll help understand. Maybe it'll help you to understand why you respond the way you do, or why you don't respond the way you don't. Either way. So here's our CPXL challenge. Now, don't forget, all this is about the incredible teaching of open rebukes, faithful wounds, profuse kisses, hidden love, all that kind of stuff. Here's the challenge that we have for you. Give and accept godly counsel. There are probably going to be people that need to hear a good, hard word from you. And if you love them enough and have enough relationship, do them the solid and give them godly, kind words, but truthful words. And then when they're spoken to you, you better listen as well. Yeah. Amen? That's your CPXL challenge. Many blessings to you, and thank you for being a part. We'll see you next time on CPXL.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of CPXL. We hope that you have been challenged to go further and grow deeper. If this podcast has been a help to you, we ask that you would like, comment, and share on whatever platform you use. And if you would like to access additional resources, go to CrossPointChurch.com. We will see you again soon on another edition of CPXL.